My name is Disciple Pipes, and welcome to the Loud Pipes Bless Lives podcast.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Pipes, and we are here, season 1, episode 4 of the Loud Pipes Bless Lives podcast. Today's topic: uncomfortable things. Specifically, not necessarily things that the church can't talk about, but that a massive congregation might not necessarily be the place to talk about it, right? But we're going to talk about it here. And I have some awesome friends with me here today. We'll start to my left. We've got my boy Emmanuel over here. The host of the Church Flirt podcast, just actually released Queen Talk, which is absolutely awesome. So thank you so much for being on the show. And then we've got my man over there all the way to the left, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who needs no introduction.
Thank you.
Not Josh Cole.
Nope, not him.
Josh Smith. Thank you so
Yep,
much for
got it
being
right.
on the show again, man. And
No
I'm going to
problem.
have you introduce this young lady here to my left, who I actually just met. If you could do me the honor of introducing her, please.
Oh wow, on the spot here. To my right, your left is my beautiful girlfriend, Sydney, all the way from Bethlehem, PA.
Yeah.
Shout out to the hood.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Shout out to where Jesus was born.
Yeah.
I get that all
You
the time.
flew all the way from Bethlehem?
Yeah.
Wow, bro, this podcast has got a massive budget. Let me tell you what. And then to my immediate right, we have the amazing, the awesome pastor, Ruben Ramos,
Hey,
who is, I don't know if I'm going to get this right, the connections pastor
perfect.
of Fountain of Life Center,
Perfect.
right?
Yeah.
Which is a good, smooth segue.
All of those things are true.
Yeah. No, it's really cool, dude, man. I've known you for a while, but then since like Overcomers, I've kind of had a chance to actually like build a friendship and stuff, and it's been really cool. So thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Absolutely,
Thanks for having me, man.
not a problem. Check's in the mail. All right. Real quick before we get this started, a quick disclaimer that the thoughts and opinions stated in this podcast do not reflect that of Disciple Christian Motorcycle Club, the Assemblies of God Church, or specifically the Fountain of Life Center. All right. So with that, man, this one. Uncomfortable things. We're just gonna dive right into it, right? There's a lot of things that the church, right? I'm not talking to like any specific religion, just the church as a whole, as an umbrella,
Capital C.
capital C, absolutely, needs to talk about. And it's not that, and what I love about our church, I'm not just saying this because you're here, right? But is that we do talk about those uncomfortable things. There's a lot of times where those uncomfortable things that a lot of people are scared to talk about, Pastor Russ is like, nope, let's do it. You know what I mean? And it's beautiful and it's amazing. But not every church does that. And here on the Loud Pipes Bless Lives podcast, I choose to say, you know what, man, if no one talks about the uncomfortable things, if no one talks about this, then no one's gonna know. Right. And that's just what I'm all about. So let's just get right into this, man. Let's start with an easy one, and then we'll get kind of deeper as we go. Let's just right off the bat, let's talk intoxicants. Okay.
The easy one.
The easy one.
Right.
The easy
exactly.
one, right?
Yeah.
That gives you a little hint of how deep this one's going to be, right? Intoxicants, right? So I grew up in the same church, right? I only didn't attend a Fountain of Life Center when I was away in college in Alabama. But other than that, I've been like fountain. Phenomenal church, and all that. But I grew up, right? Again, not reflecting on Fountain of Life, but just my parents, right? The home I was raised in was like weed is bad, alcohol is bad, wine is bad, pills are bad, cocaine so bad we won't even talk about it.
I thought you were going to be like,
Right.
cocaine?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fine.
It's all right. I mean, whatever.
Those other ones. we
Yeah.
don't- Cocaine.
Yeah.
That was fine.
Line it up. No, anyway, no. So I just want to get, I guess, your perspectives on it, right? So I've dealt with. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a recovering opiate addict. I tell people all the time, right? I don't smoke weed, do drugs, or drink because I'm a Christian. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with I'm a recovering addict. Like I tell people that all the time. Like, look, don't think I'm like this hoity-toity Christian because he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke because he loves Jesus. No, I don't drink or smoke because if I do, I'll like die, right? You know, that's why I don't. But this is one of those things, man, you know, that like a lot of people are, you can drink, just don't get drunk. Weed is something that God has given us, which I mean, yes, he has, right? Beer or hops and all these other things. So what are your thoughts and perspectives on that, right? Understand this isn't like as a judgment free zone. This isn't like, I'm not going to sit here and convince you that what you feel is wrong or, whatever, but I genuinely want other people's opinions to be heard. Right. So with that being said, what do you guys think, right? Alcohol, intoxicants, right? Weed, pills, shrooms, whatever. Yes, no, gray areas, right? What are your thoughts on this? Anybody? It's a really loaded question, but right. Okay, here we go. I'll ask this one. I'm gonna be honest, right? Who at this table drinks? Raise your hand if you drink. Cool, awesome. Yeah. Okay. Who here smokes weed? Again, yeah. Anybody?
I have, but
Anybody?
not recently.
Okay, awesome. Last time I smoked, I don't really remember, honestly. Okay. Any sort of prescription pain pills. Now, not prescription pain pills that aren't prescribed.
Yeah.
Like recreational use of anything. Anybody? No? Okay. So, you guys drink alcohol, right? I don't drink, like I said, just because I'm recovering. It's got nothing to do with Jesus. It's got everything to do with that. So your thoughts, right? Men, women of God. What are your thoughts on alcohol in the church or in your life?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, my parents were very strict. You know, the African culture. So essentially, pretty much everything is bad. You know.
Okay.
Except for the blood of Jesus. You know, that's
Right.
So
Communion,
right?
you know, you
So
can keep
communion,
taking
you know?
shots of that, you know.
Right.
Facts.
So I mean, I've kind of followed that lifestyle until I was like 23. I think I never touched a sip of alcohol.
Yeah.
That was it. So when I had it, I still didn't go crazy. You know, I was able to moderate it and whatever. But
Yeah.
even now, I barely drink it. You know, but every once in a while, I will have maybe like a crisp Red's apple ale or something like that. But and people are like, "Oh, that's the lighter side." I'd be like, "Yeah, but that's what I like." You know, but
For sure.
so I guess I think it goes back to there's a Bible verse where it says everything is lawful for me, but not everything drawing a
It's
blank.
permissible.
Permissible, yeah. So I mean, I guess in moderation, I would
Okay.
think is
Okay.
okay. In a sense.
Okay. I respect that opinion for sure.
I can go from like the opposite kind of perspective. In my house, alcohol wasn't really terribly bad, and I did grow up in a Christian home, but I guess it wasn't as discussed about a lot of things, which Joshua and I talk a lot about. Is in his house, it was like, okay, a lot of things were discussed, but for me, it was kind of just like you fend for yourself.
Taboo
So
kind
it's
of
never
thing.
been, I mean, it was always frowned upon for me to if I were to drink or smoke.
Okay. Yeah.
I never touched any prescription drugs or anything like that personally because I had the opportunity, but I was like, you guys can do that. I would like
Yeah.
to stay on
It's
this
not
end.
worth it, I promise. Don't do
I
it.
was like, I would like to stand on this side of it.
Yeah.
But it is interesting seeing the household that I grew up in, how my parents act now, how I act, what I've been exposed to going to a regular college, just a university, no Christian stamp on it, and having all of my friends, if not most of them, not Christian. So it's definitely hard
Yeah.
to explain that and experience it because there's a lot of times where I would just have a drink with my friends, but now at the age I'm at now, I'm kind of like it makes me sick, and there's not
Mm.
really a reason. Like, it's not necessarily, yes, Jesus, okay, that's why I don't want to drink, but it's kind of just it doesn't make me feel good, and I don't really want to.
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that now. Weed, on the other hand, I have smoked before. Was it something that was very common? No. Is it something that I would do now? Possibly. I'm not gonna lie. I'm being
Yeah.
fully transparent. And once again, not necessarily a Jesus thing because I know where my heart is, and I know a lot of people could use that as an excuse. But it's also not that I'm willingly going out of my way purchasing weed and smoking it. And then there's like the other argument of CBD or how that could be healing for people, relaxing, soothe anxieties. There's ways for marijuana to be used in the mental health context for anxiety, for other things, as long as you're not operating huge machinery.
Heavy machinery, right.
Yeah. Well, also,
But it's just different.
to clarify, you cannot get high off CBD.
Mm-mm.
There's no THC in it whatsoever. So like, again, right? It's like that thing like weed, CBD. Like I think a lot of people think that it's the same thing.
THC.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
THC versus CBD, right?
It's not, but I've tried, like, because there's been like the CBD relaxing things.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
like tried that, and it
Oils
makes me
and-
feel
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
So it's still I still feel like there's a very fine line.
for sure.
Real talk. One time I gave my dog CBD pills and he
It worked.
couldn't control his pee. So
That's
awesome.
awesome.
So,
awesome.
so
we
it
didn't
works.
get the ounces to pounds right. So
He looks like a Doberman, sure. You know? What?
It's
No.
It was not good. It was really sad,
Wow.
actually.
Yikes.
But it's
Poor
I
guy.
think
He's fine now, everybody.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
but to wrap that up, I think for me and for a lot of people, it comes to personal conviction, because I know it's a hard topic, because
Yeah,
I know people that
uncomfortable.
it is. I know
Yeah.
people that really will feel
On
really
the news.
Yeah.
will feel bad about it, and some people won't.
Yeah,
And
for
they're
sure.
all in the church, so I think it just I don't know. I'm a little more lenient on that, because I feel like if you're serving the Lord,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
then part of it also, on the other hand, is um you're serving the Lord, but if you're continually intoxicated,
Mhm.
that's where I'm like,
Yeah. Or if you come to pray for me at the altar and you smell like
Right.
Kush, like
Right. Right.
Right.
yeah,
Because-
You know what I'm
because-
saying? Like,
because God calls us to have a sober mind.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
mean, I definitely think that can alter it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
for sure. Awesome. Josh, you got anything on that, bud?
For me personally, I grew up a lot similar to Emmanuel, in terms of everything being bad, which is kind of funny because, as I've gotten older, my parents have made comments to where they've like admitted they had a drink, and I've been like, "You had a drink, a sip of alcohol? Who are you, you heathens?" Like,
Take it to the cross.
And so I mean, so that was the mindset growing up, and then like Emmanuel, I didn't have really my first drink until I think I was like 21. But it wasn't like I went hard either. It was like, like a sip of wine. It was like, so for me, like Emmanuel, I mean, I have a drink. I rarely drink, like here and there,
Yep.
maybe like a glass of wine, if anything, or like champagne or something like that. Um, for me, it has a lot to do with just my personal convictions in terms of what I feel like will lead me closer to Christ.
Mm.
And it kind of goes similar. Again, I'm quoting the manual here, like almost word for word. But like you can do everything, but is everything really good for you? For me personally, I don't feel like alcohol would bring me closer to the Lord. I don't feel like smoking weed would bring me closer to the Lord. Again, that's not saying I would never use it if I was in pain or different things like
yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure.
Because I believe that does have a place, medicine and stuff like that. But that's different conversation. But I wouldn't do it on a regular basis because I feel like that would hinder my relationship with Jesus. I feel like, again, that would possibly be an idol that I
Yeah.
would put in my life or distract me from my relationship with Jesus. But yeah, that's kind of my
Yeah.
thoughts going on that.
I think it goes to a lot of like influence, right? I remember I was like 11 or 12, and I grew up in a house like it was all bad, which is crazy because I try not to raise my children that way, because first thing was like your parents tell you everything that's bad. What's the first thing you want to do? You want to do all the bad things,
Right.
right? So like I try we try to do like handle that a little differently, but you know what I'm saying? Because I remember I was like 11 or 12 and we went out to eat after church one Sunday, and there was a couple there, and I think they were like deacons of the church or board members, something very, very influential people in the church, and in our church specifically, and just having a glass of wine with dinner, like no big deal. And this guy was like a role model in my life. And I remember like walking up, I saw him having dinner, and I was like, "Mom, Dad, can I go say hi?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead, son." And I walked up, and I just saw the glass of wine, and it took me a good like 3 or 4 months to like be able to go up and say hi to them again.
You were like crushed by it.
Yeah, and like I was like, but you're
Wow.
not allowed to do that.
Right.
Like, but that's wrong,
Oh, right.
right? And
Wow.
I think that's like one of the main reasons why I don't do it is because I'm not saying like I have a lot of influence, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And this is me, right? This is my conviction, right?
Mhm.
Just for me, just because I can do it doesn't mean I should, because there are young people that like shout out to the Overcomers family, man. You know what I'm saying? Like if
Right,
I were to come in there have been times where I've gone to an event with my motorcycle club and there'll be guys like drinking and smoking weed, everything like that. And my colors will smell like weed, right? And I'll ride my bike to the event, like to Overcomers.
Yeah.
I'll take my colors off and leave them like somewhere else because I have to be conscious of that. Not because I'm worried, like, oh no, they're gonna think I'm smoking and I'm
Right.
living this life. No, but I know what it could do to some of the people in that group. They
Sure.
smell that and they're like, "Mrrr," you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, that's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's that one? Finding
Stumbling
Nemo,
block? Oh.
when he like smells the blood. You know, and he's like, "Mrrr," like it's like one of those things, you know. But that's for me. Like that's why like our daughter, she has really bad seizures, and we've constantly like been reaching out to the doctors, like, what about CBD? What about CBD? What about CBD? What about CBD? Because I mean, there's a lot of documentation that it works. It's amazing, right? Unfortunately, our doctors won't prescribe it to her because there aren't enough negative side effects. Right? There's too many unanswered questions on what it could do wrong. Right? There's a plenty of it does this right and it does this and does it's arthritis and
Sure.
mental health and all these other things, but we don't know enough about what happens if. Right? So for that reason they won't, which I respect that, you know.
Especially because she's young.
Yeah,
It's
she's
a kid.
three.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's 3. You know what I
We're
mean?
not talking
Wow.
like you as a
Yeah,
consenting
absolutely,
adult,
absolutely.
Right.
But and then get with the drinking, right? I think for me personally, right, the reason why I don't or whatever is just because of influence, right? It's funny. There's only, I think a lot of people that are like either in recovery or whatever. There's certain things or places they can't go, right? Like my mom, I love her, and I say this. I say this because I know she would be, whatever. But she's been clean and sober for I'm 20, 31 years, right? She can't go to a bar, dude. You know what I mean? Like it's just she drives by one and like it's funny, bro. Like her mouth will start watering and she's just like, like you know what I mean? Like she just can't do that. For me, bro, you can put a shot of tequila right on this table. It's not gonna do a single thing for me.
Sure.
You can like literally. I went to the racetrack with my buddy one time, and he smokes and he rides or whatever, and he was so high that he was like, "Hey man, you want some?" And like hands it right to me. And I was like, "Nah, I'm okay, thanks." Like I have no problem with that. Like it just
Sure.
but you know what gets me though? Cigars, right? And I think it's not an intoxicant
Sure.
so much, but that is also something that we are maybe uncomfortable talking about, right?
Sure.
Like you give your heart to the Lord, you've been smoking for 30 years. Should you quit? Should you keep smoking?
Right.
Right? And for me, because for me, when I smell that cigar, I don't just smell the cigar and the beautiful thing. And yeah, you don't inhale it and blah 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 blah. But you know what? For me, cigars always tasted better when I was high.
Mm.
So when I smoked a cigar, I would always pop a Dilaudid or I'd
Right.
pop a Perk 30 and then I would smoke that cigar and just go to my happy place. So when
Right,
I smell a
right.
cigar, it makes me weak in weak in the knees, bro.
Right,
Like that's
right,
what
right.
gets me, right?
Right.
So what are your thoughts, right? Just
Yeah.
on all of that.
So I didn't grow up in a Christian home,
Mhm.
so I didn't have that same experience that everyone's kind of relating. And I think it's just a little bit like what you were saying, Cindy, that alcohol was like taboo, but also not like what it was kind of whatever.
Yeah.
I ended up just like friends of mine, smoking weed, drinking a little bit, doing pills and all that other stuff. And it was, I think what you're talking about of like when I was high, being able to smoke a cigarette was like
Yeah.
A1. Like
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's like certain brands of cigarettes that I smell while I'm walking down the street
Yep.
where I'm like, oh, this is associated with a lot of memories.
Yeah,
and a lot of
absolutely.
things.
For sure.
And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's not necessarily the cigarette itself, but the association that comes with the thing that I was that it's relating to.
Yep.
And so I think my like being ordained, like I signed a paper that said I wouldn't do that, but I also think that's just my conviction at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think that um, it's easy for me to justify whatever I want to do because I am reasonably intelligent and I can be able to use scripture to
Right.
back up X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
Right.
And so it's easy for me to get to that place where I use that to say, like, this is the reason why I can, and it's totally fine that I do this.
Yeah.
I think it kind of what you were saying, Josh. It kind of, to me, it comes down to a surrender thing. It comes down to I don't want to put anything in my life that could potentially take the position that Jesus belongs in my heart.
That's good.
I
And
love that.
so
Good.
I'm going to be conscientious of those kinds of things, and
Mhm.
that comes to more than just intoxicants for me too.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, it's a constant cycle through of wanting to say what's in my heart that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
I at this point it's like a sick joke on how often I quote this scripture, but like in Psalms 139 it says, "Search me and know me, O God." Yeah, yeah. It's like as if I don't know any other scriptures. Search me and know me, O God, know my anxious thoughts. It's this cry to say, Holy Spirit, search every part of me.
Yeah.
And then the psalmist ends by saying, and lead me in the way everlasting, right?
Yep.
So my whole disposition comes down to on what is anything in my life that is garbage that I need the Holy Spirit to address
Mm.
in me
That's
so
good.
that I can take it out and be led in the way everlasting.
Yeah.
So intoxicants fall in that, but I think that like if you want to get really stupid about stuff, like I think also like I freaking love candy, like like an absurd amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like and like I can eat 17 bags of whatever and like doesn't bother me. But then it becomes this thing of like it's not like does candy have the position in my heart that Jesus should? Because like I'm an adult at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
but it's one of those things that it's am I looking for something here? Am I wasting my time? Am I
Yeah.
not utilizing the things that I should be utilizing, the time that I have, the resources that I have in order to benefit my spirit? That's
Yeah.
not to say you can't enjoy something.
For sure.
That's to say that it it if it's a kind of becomes a balance of all things.
Mhm.
And I would rather be able to when it comes to like intoxicants, I'd rather be in a place where I'm saying, you know what, I know me, I know what I can do, and instead I'm going to lay that aside because I find I care more about what I can represent. I care more about who Jesus is in my life than I care about these things. And that doesn't mean anything to anybody except for me.
Yeah.
You know what
For
I
sure.
mean? Because it's again like I being a pastor, somebody like says a bad word and like, ooh.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you knew the thoughts
Yeah,
that were in my
you-
head, my friends.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? So like never in my life do I ever care if somebody does drink or whatever. Like that's I think to me it comes down to where is that in the position of your heart?
That's good.
If it is not one, if it's not number one where Jesus is, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
For sure. That's good, man. I remember when I was in Alabama, Jackie Hill with the Passion for Christ movement, spoken word, came out with this spoken word called Mary Jane. And it, because I was that guy that had would use the excuse like, all I'm doing is just making use of God's creation, right? God made weed and I'm just using it, right? It's okay. It's all good. And she came out with this spoken word. And I don't remember the whole thing, but she said this
Imagine
one.
you just quoted the whole thing.
Right,
Like,
bro, that'd be good. That'd be really good.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jackie, are you listening?
yeah, right. Yeah. No, but it was this one part, and it said, for us that are using the excuse that all I'm doing is making use of God's creation. Why do pedophiles go to prison when all they're doing is making use of God's creation?
Oi.
Yo, and I was that's exactly what I did. I was like, yeah, and then instantly I started to go,
Miss
right, right, and then instantly I'm like, well, no, that's different. Well, no, it's not. Right, sin is sin, right? And that was a huge conviction for me in my life. And like I told myself, I was like, nope, never using that excuse again. And that was a game changer, bro. I never really thought about it that way, and that's like my whole why I want to talk about these things, right? Because there might be people that have thinking that way or thinking other ways, and they never thought about, like, dude, when you said that, like, taking place in your heart, I was like, bro, that's in the words of Emmanuel, bars. Bars, bro. That's good stuff, man. That's really good. So I want to kind of shift gears, man, because in all of that, right? So pills and drinking and smoking and all that, there's always, like, I mean, people in the church are gonna come at you and judge you, which is okay, whatever, man. I get it, right? But then there's those people, right? That I've been clean and sober for almost 8 years. And there are people that still treat me like I'm a freaking maniac, right? I'm covered in tattoos, you know what I mean? Head to toe practically. And there are these people that are like, you're gonna burn in hell forever, right? I remember a story of this woman, again, at the church, bless her heart. She's amazing, man. I love her. And we kind of like worked out our differences.
Sure.
But she came up to me one day. I was back home from school, and I used to have my ears stretched like 1.5 inches.
Right.
So like massive, like, ears stretched. Obviously, like, my head was like freshly tattooed. My fingers are done. Like, everything's all done. And she comes up to me and she's just like, I miss the old you. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, before, now you got to give us some context here, right? I get kicked out of Bible college. Right? I get kicked out of Bible college because I'm like angry at God, and I'm doing, like, I'm sleeping around, I'm drinking, I'm smoking, I'm popping pills, I'm doing all this crazy stuff. And this woman comes up to me, and now, mind you, I've gotten away from that. I'm getting my heart back to the Lord, and I'm trying to fix it, right? And she's like, I miss the old you. And I snapped on this woman. I was like, the old me? What do you mean the old me? She's like, before the tattoos and the big holes in your ears. I was like, oh, you mean the kid that was addicted to porn, was sleeping around with everybody, was an alcoholic, and was hooked on pills and couldn't go a day without smoking? You miss that kid? Is that because I'm not that person anymore? I'm sorry that I look different, right? But that's not who I am, right? And she was just like, that's not what I meant. Like, well, then tell me what you mean.
Say what you just.
Yeah, but we worked it out. Right, but there are some people in the church.
Tone difference.
Tell me what you mean.
Yeah.
But worked it out.
Yeah, but we worked it out. It was all right. It was all right. But then there are some other people that, don't get it twisted, man. Like, I'm not trying to put you on blast, right? But you put something up on Facebook, and I'm paraphrasing it, but it was basically like, if you're thinking this way and not this way, I don't think we serve the same Jesus, right? And that resonated in my heart, right? I'm not trying to, like, I'm paraphrasing. Yeah, bro. Yeah, somebody write that down. somebody screenshot that. Right? Screenshot that post. And no, but there are people, man.
While you're talking, go ahead. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah. No, but like, there are people in the church, right? And I don't know if it's that they're stuck in their old ways, if their religion. I remember I bought this T-shirt, and it says, big bold letter says, religion sucks. And it talks about the scripture in Matthew where Jesus went to the priest and said, yo, dude, you're missing the point. Right? It's not about you got to do X, Y, and Z. It's about understanding that I am A through Z, so just go to me, right? And I remember there was a right? Come on now. Anyway, anyway, so and I remember a former pastor of the church came up to me and was like, you need to take that off right now. I was like, I'm fat. You really want me to take my shirt off in church right now? Like, I don't have another shirt on. Like, you really want me to do that? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I told him, and it was like that old mindset of like, well, no, religion is everything. I'm like, yeah, religion is everything that put him on the cross. That's what it is. So, like, no bars ones on that one. Okay, no, but like, no, but like, so you get these like, I don't know if necessarily legalistic is the right word,
right?
But you have these like super Christians, right? That they're like, okay, like the whole thing with like the tattoos, right? Like, yo, you got tattoos, you're gonna burn in hell, right? And I've been working on it. I've been getting better. Anyway, I used to be a really big jerk. Now I'm just
moderate jerk.
A moderate jerk, which is progress. That's progress. All right, come on. But see, maybe like lose my train of thought and everything, dude. What was I even saying? I don't remember.
I
Must
think
have
you
been
were
that important.
Religion.
You were talking about
Oh, religion and
talking
legalistic
about-
stuff
yeah,
and
yeah.
all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember it was. See, I don't remember. It must have been that important. Whatever. Screw it.
Blinded by rage.
yeah, right. My flesh is.
To
yeah.
quote me exactly, I
Boom.
said, if you are more outraged about your church not opening than you are outraged about Black lives that we lost in the last few months because of injustice, I don't know if you and I serve the same Jesus.
We're about to be best friends.
Bars.
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 That's what I said.
Quality.
At me.
At me. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question before we move
Yeah,
on here.
go
Right?
for it, bro.
So, do you think some of it has to do with you're talking about like religious people and all this other stuff, and
Yeah.
and I think one of the hardest things for a lot of Christians is the the damage or baggage that can happen when you grow up in the same church the entire time.
Yeah.
Because I think that part of what the issue is that somebody saw you when you were 5, someone saw you when you were 12, someone saw when you were 17, someone
Oh,
saw
yeah.
you when you were 22,
Absolutely.
and so on, right? So the problem becomes these moments of like, I miss you when you were this, or
Yeah.
I miss this kind of thing.
For sure.
And I think that some of the issue really just comes down to some people just have too much history in the same place. You know what I mean?
That's good. Yeah.
And I think that history ends up damaging them in two different directions, right? Because you can have it where it's somebody saying like, "Hey, I miss when you were like this,"
Mhm.
but then the other end of the spectrum is that people don't let you move on because of what
Yeah.
you used to be. Right?
Absolutely.
So the other end of like, you're always going to be a good for nothing. You are always going to be this because this is who you were when you were 17.
Yeah.
I think that I get some of the stuff that happens in like celebrity culture when people dig up tweets that came up like 10 years ago that
Yeah.
were like
Oh yeah.
like racist or sexist or whatever it was, and they're like they lose their job all of a sudden because of these things. To which like I get wanting to hold them accountable, and I think there's a legitimacy to that, but I think
sure.
holding them accountable also has to come down to like, hey, do you still believe those things?
Yeah.
Because who I was 10 years ago is nothing to who I am now.
For sure.
And so I don't think it's fair to hold somebody accountable to a tweet that was from 10 years ago. I don't think it was fair to hold somebody accountable for who they were 10 years ago without a conversation of like, hey, do you still believe these things?
Yeah.
Because if you do, get the heck out, you're fired, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But if you don't and you learned and you grew, then I think that's a different conversation.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
I think that when it comes down to, I mean, I'm kind of pivoting, and I didn't really mean to do that, but I think when it comes down to sometimes with overly religious culture or this radical Christianity, I think part of the damage that can end up happening is this desire to hold on to tradition
Mhm.
over holding on to biblical understanding.
Yeah. That's good.
And I think biblical understanding can grow so much because I think there were certain things when I was younger and like really fresh in my faith that I was really zealous about that I look at now, to which I'm like, I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For
Like
sure.
literally like this was the hill that I was gonna die on. And
Yeah.
now I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like there's way more important things.
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
And so I think part of it is history that can hold on to itself, but then
For sure.
history and maybe this is a like both like one and the same thing that some people try to hold on to tradition more than they want to hold on to whatever, because you know I don't wear a tie very often when I'm in church, but every time I do, I get a comment about like, oh, you look so nice in your tie. All the pastors should be wearing ties. Like, I don't
Screw
care.
that.
Yeah,
Right.
because this is the thing. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like it's an active decision for me to not wear a tie, and the reason is because there's somebody who was just like me who's
Yeah.
going to see me and looking uppity and disconnect.
Absolutely.
And I'm not
Absolutely.
interested.
Yeah. For sure.
And I'm not interested to place your tradition over the opportunity to potentially reach somebody.
Yeah.
And so like
Absolutely.
I'm going to dress like I normally do and act like I'm a normal person because I am, instead of trying to get into this like, okay, you got to get that Sunday best for Jesus and
Yeah.
that not being really helpful for anything except making people uncomfortable, setting a standard that doesn't exist, shouldn't exist, was never a requirement for Christ.
Yeah.
So why am I going to get into this position just because you want to push your radical Christianity, your overly tradition Christianity over Jesus?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
good.
interested in your tradition. I'm
That's good.
interested in Jesus.
That's good. I think one of the worst. I saw this somewhere, so don't. This isn't my bars. This is something else. But this is the worst thing the church can ever say is it's always been done this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's
Mhm.
always been done that way.
Mhm.
Like, we always wear a suit. You're always supposed to do this. You're always supposed to do that. Pastor Russ, man, shares the story of the young woman who was like going to different churches, and they're telling her like she had she had a sleeve, right? Like, she was tattooed up.
He's trying.
Yeah, he's trying. And he was like, she just was going to different churches. She just felt very uncomfortable, and then she came to his church. I think it was in White Plains or something, and he wasn't wearing a tie,
Right.
and the people in the church were wearing like jeans and a polo,
Right.
and she just felt so at home.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that woman now is like a Christian. She's involved in the church. And all
Right,
that.
right,
And I
right.
think that's the bigger picture, right? Because I don't want to just sit here and say, and because it's one thing to point out all the wrong things or to say like, oh, well, legalistic is it. It's another thing to do that and now provide a solution,
Sure.
right? So obviously, it's like you make the conscious decision to not wear that because you want to be able to minister to that one person.
Also, they're uncomfortable. Let's be honest.
Yeah, for real, absolutely, right? But like, so when you have someone who's like legalistic or whatever, I had somebody the other day, man, who was ripping this kid a new one. And he basically, this young man left the church because of people like this. And I'm reading these comments, and it frustrated me. It filled me with righteous anger, right? And excuse me. And literally, this young man flat out said, was like, "Yo, you're the reason why I left the church." Like, well, da, 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 da. And I don't even remember what I said. It was something like praying for you, like something like simple like that. And he just started coming at my throat. And I got to be honest with you guys, the jerk meter was like, I told him, I was like, yo, bro, I gave him my address, and I said, come to my house, say it to my face, or keep your mouth shut. Right?
Bars.
I ain't got no time. I ain't got no time for being so. Yo,
This is a moderate jerk law.
yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my
Ready
thing,
for
like
war.
one of those uncomfortable things, right? Yo, I don't want to say an advocate, whatever, but like, yo, men of God's got to stop being so soft, right? Speak up for what you believe in. Say, yo, this is not right. This is wrong. I'm going to do, and not just, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but yo, this is wrong, and this is what I intend to do about it.
Sure.
And I don't care if you like it or not, but as a man of God, I'm going to do this, right? And I think, so that's my question, right? Is we could sit here and talk about those stories of, people coming and going or not feeling welcome or internet trolls and shoving scripture down the throat. But what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
How can each of us participate in fixing that or changing that? For instance, you, right? I'm not going to wear a tie, right? For me, I try my hardest to just be me all the time, right? I think I own a pair of slacks. Like I own, like, you know what I mean? Like, Like that's just not me. I'm not going to go show up to church. And bro, when I showed up to the volunteer banquet in a blazer, everyone's like, whoa, are you feeling okay? Like, is there something wrong? Like, whoa, I didn't even know you owned that.
You borrowed that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, because that's just not who I am, right? And so let me ask you guys, right? How, as men and women of God, right? What do we do? What can we do? What can you encourage someone, whether they're watching this on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Anchor, whatever, right? If you can encourage someone who is sick and tired of legalistic crap, you can say, hey man, blank, right? Hey man, don't wear that tie, right? Be that person. Like one thing I say in the club, right, is or in just life, is I try to be who I needed. When I was lost and dying in my sin, I didn't need a pastor. I didn't need a preacher. I didn't need someone to tell me I was wrong. I needed someone that was going to call me out of my crap and was going to keep his mouth shut and just listen to me. And then when I was done, laugh at me and tell me how much of an idiot I was, but then love me through that.
Sure.
So that's what I try to be, right? I try to be that person that, you can call me 3 o'clock in the morning and whatever, right? So that's my stand. That's what I choose to do. What do you guys, if you can encourage someone, hey, this is where we need to do, this is where we need to stand up, what would that encouragement look like or be?
I've got mine.
Yeah, go for it.
Unapologetically live your truth and remember where Jesus was. My biggest thing, and I'm you may even be a lot better than I am because I used to have a friend that uh
Keyword used to.
right, who was I short blip. I went to the transformation conference and I remember I came back and she was like, "I see that you've strayed away from the faith." And I said, "Wait. What?" And she said, "Oh, like um all those churches, they don't know what they're talking about. It's
Because it
all
was a big
the
church.
it was yes, because it was a big church and it's like
Oh, yeah.
they only preach the prosperity gospel." And I'm like,
The Holy Spirit only moves in the first 3 rows anyway.
Right. I was sitting there, I was
and
like,
you with your 17,000 rows.
No way.
Not
Not
moving.
gonna happen.
right, and I said, "Okay, we're done here." And
Yeah.
I had nothing else to say. It's really hard because I've met people and I've been amongst people that, for lack of better terms, piss me off because it hurts me.
Yeah.
Because it's like you don't even know how many people are missing God's glory because you're not going there.
Mm.
So I used to drive Uber and Lyft, and I wanted to get a slice of pizza one night. It was like maybe 1 in the morning. You get the best money then because you're driving around all the drunk people. And
Facts.
I wanted I wanted a break, so I went to go get pizza at the local bar that I know only sells $1 slices of pizza at 1 a.m. So I went there and I actually was able to speak to people, told them that I wanted to do ministry, told them that I love God, told them that this is what I'm doing. And it turned from everyone being drunk to everyone listening to what Sydney had to say about Jesus.
That's good.
So it was just like, not that it's about me, because it's really not at all. It's not about me. It's about God, and He uses me in the ways that He does. But it's so hard for me to listen to people like that.
Mm.
Because I will live my truth. I'm not perfect, and I'm going to do that unapologetically because that's how people are saved. The experience that I've had as a woman speaking to other young women, how I grew up in the household that I grew up in, how me finding my faith is me going to church now and my parents not even going or even wanting to go. And it's just very different. And I really think that that's important, that when you're living out your life, when you're living out your truth, that includes good, bad, and ugly times where you're not feeling the best, times when, it doesn't look the best. It doesn't look cookie cutter, but that's not where we're meant to be. Jesus was amongst the least of those.
Mm.
Jesus was amongst the people who didn't have friends, the people who were in the street, the people who were poor. And we think, quote unquote, the church sometimes thinks that they're so holy that they can't even go to those places because they're afraid of, oh, like, I don't want to get near that person. I don't know what they're going to do. But Jesus quickly laid his hands on those people, quickly spoke to them. So it's hard for me to have any type of empathy towards anyone like that because I look at them and I say, okay, where are you on the spectrum of things? Are you holier than thou? No, you're not. God created all of us. Like, what makes you think you have a better chance at heaven than these people do? They need it more than you do.
Good.
That's
That's really good. That's really good, man. I think again, just authenticity, man. Right? Be who you say you're gonna be. Do what you say you're gonna do. You guys got anything? Encouragement. Speak life. Speak life.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think knowing that Jesus went to the slums, Jesus, interacted with people
Yeah.
that people wouldn't normally, interact with. I remember watching, one of those Jesus flicks. I think it was The Chosen, where, what do you call it? There was a guy with leprosy, and
Mm.
Jesus immediately touched him, like, no, you can't touch him. And then he went and touched everybody else, and was like, ah, and it was like, why are we so afraid to do that?
Yeah.
And why are we so afraid to reach out to people that don't look like us, people that don't act like us? And those are the people that Jesus reached.
For sure.
And it brings me back to this one portion of a song where this is a bar, it's not mine, but oh gosh, now I'm gonna forget it. But he says, "I'm not holier than thou, Mister. I got my eyes open and now I'm seeing through the scriptures." And a
Ooh,
lot of the times,
good.
we're looking at the scripture and I wouldn't say older people, but people that are stuck in that way of thinking. They're stuck to the traditional. Oh, white Jesus, oh,
Yeah.
you know,
Jesus.
holier than thou in this,
Shout out to SO, amazing song.
right?
Right.
but
Yeah.
but yeah, you get so stuck in our ways. But the thing
Yeah.
is, Jesus came and taught grace, you
Mhm.
know, and we should have grace for others.
That's good. That's really good, man. Josh.
Man, you guys all said really good things, and I would take a piece of everything because honestly, I believe all those things. I would say just meet people where they're at,
Mm.
and that doesn't diminish your relationship, or who you are, your relationship with Jesus, who you are, because Jesus was still Jesus, but he also went out and he sat with sinners, and he also sat with drunkards, um, everyone else. I mean, um, people don't need you screaming Jesus, Jesus, Jesus all the time. He didn't do that. It didn't take away that he was God's son, or it didn't make him anybody different, but it just made him human. The fact that he just went there and sat with them, and he just listened to their stories, and he accepted them for who they are. And I think that's especially what people need, is just for you to accept them who they are. They don't need you, and that's what I try to not do, is try not to fix people, because that's, at the end of the day, it's not my job.
Yeah.
My job is just to love you the way you are, and let Jesus do the work. And I believe if we just meet people where they're at, and we just be authentic and be ourselves, and we don't let people influence the work that we do, because that's one thing I love about our church,
Yeah.
especially. Like a short backstory is that we launched a second campus in Trenton, but we don't just keep everything in house and ask the people
Yep.
to come. We go and meet them where they're at. We go to the streets. We go to the empanada shops. We go through
You do
like-
that for you. Don't play games. You
Well,
love
listen,
empanadas.
well,
Some fire
hey,
empanadas, okay?
hey,
I'm missing.
It's my
It's a
cross
win-win.
works
bear.
there.
It's a
All right,
win-win.
Jesus moves through the food. All right,
Yeah.
listen.
Hey,
Amen.
come on
He
now.
does. I can feel love in food.
That's
I
good.
really can.
That's good though, man. You know, I said this. It was weird. I was with you and Pastor Johnny, and we were in like, I don't know, the hallway in the school or something. And I just like blurted something out, and then I was just like, "Whoa, what?" And it was, Jesus will leave the 99 for the one,
Yeah.
but don't be the reason the one left in the first place.
I remember that.
You know what I mean?
That was good.
And I said it,
Bars.
I was like, "Wait, what? What just happened?" Right?
Bars.
Yeah,
You always
but
hear it.
you know what I'm saying though. Like, you know what I'm saying. Like in that moment, right? Right. I heard a story with everything going on in the world, transition, right? With the Black Lives Matter movement, the All Lives Matter, and I guarantee you, most of those radical Christians or those legalistic people, they're the ones that are screaming "All Lives Matter,"
Sure.
right? But it was one of those things where it was like, you know, those 99 sheep aren't any less of importance to the shepherd, right? It's not like he just like forgets them, right? But what if one of those 99 sheep said something that made that one leave in the first place, right? And Pastor Dorian, if you guys are listening to this, I encourage you, go on YouTube, look up the Fountain Life Center. Pastor Russell Hodgins and Pastor Dorian did an amazing just conversation. It wasn't really a sermon, it was just a conversation. And he shared this story, and it really put it into perspective, a different perspective for me. He talked about like a house fire, right? And how, like, you know, if your house is on fire and I'm your next door neighbor, and I run out and I'm like, "Yo, dude, no, fire department, like come put water on my house. It's not on fire, but it could be." Right? And I'm your neighbor, so take care of me. But your house is burning down, right? You're missing it, right? I heard another analogy. I want to go back to that, but it was like the rainforest, right? And it was like, you know, there are forests and woods areas all over the world, right? But the rainforest is threatened right now, right? People are cutting down the trees for rubber. Birds are going extinct. All this other stuff. People are just indigenous people are getting chased out of their homes. And we make a stand for that, right? And you don't forget the other forests, you don't forget all of them, but that's where the help is needed.
Yeah.
So that's where we help. And I think understanding, back to the house fire, right? As men and women of God, what is happening less and less, and what needs to happen more and more, is instead of going, "Hey, I know my house isn't on fire, but can you come help?" No, what needs to happen is you run to your backyard, grab your hose, and help put your neighbor's fire out.
Right. And I
You
think
know?
I think I have 1,000 thoughts. So I think the problem really comes down to a lack of diversity in someone's circle.
Absolutely.
So here's the problem with all social media as a whole. You follow people you like.
Yeah.
So you're going to follow people who agree with you.
Mhm.
So by following people that agree with you, you're creating your own echo chamber where you're all
Mhm.
just saying the same exact thing.
Correct.
So everybody is all conservative, everybody is all liberal, everybody is all left wing, everyone's all right wing because those are the people that you follow.
Correct. Yep.
You didn't diversify the conversation, and therefore you are fed the same rhetoric over and over and over again, proving that these facts that exist are there because this news source said it, these people said that, X, Y, and Z. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you diversified your conversation, you're going to get different perspectives.
Mhm.
Because I think there's a lot of assumptions that I have to make here, but I think somebody typically who has the disposition all lives matter, there's a very good chance that you are white when you say that. There's a very good chance that all of your friends are white. There's a very good chance that everyone around you is white. Okay? So you never heard the experience of somebody who got pulled over just because of the color of their skin.
Yeah.
You never heard the experience of somebody following you around in the store because even though you and your buddy who's white walk in at the same time, right? You have a black person and a white person. The black person's being followed all the way around, while the white person just gets to do whatever he wants. It's no big deal, right? I talk about like I was a part of a church once, and I was laying that exact situation out. And I said, me and my buddy Jamal are walking through a 7-Eleven. I go, Jamal's getting followed everywhere he goes, and I'm over here, and nothing happens. Somebody in the crowd said to me, "It was like, well, is Jamal a bad person?"
Wow.
Which I'm like, that's not the point.
Yeah, you're missing it.
The point is Jamal is a better person than I am.
Yeah.
But because he's black, he's getting followed around.
Yeah, for sure.
And the problem becomes that if you don't diversify your circle, you don't diversify your conversation, the problem happens is that you don't hear those types of stories. So you're in this place of, well, he must have been doing something wrong. It's because he had that counterfeit bill, because of the meth and amphetamines that were in his body. It was because of the diabetes that's the reason why.
Yeah.
It's because he was running in the wrong neighborhood.
Mm.
Because she was sleeping in the wrong house.
Mm.
Like your logic is going to fall apart so fast because you haven't diversified your conversation and you're living in an echo chamber where everyone is just saying all lives matter. Yeah. Instead of recognizing, wait a second, there is the experience of other people that's happening simultaneously. And now how do I reconcile these two realities that are existing? Because there are there's my reality, and then there's a reality of the experience of somebody's having. How do these two get married? It's by having that conversation and being able to say somehow these two things exist. Because at the end of the day, this is where I come down to. At the end of the day, when you try to ignore everything that's happening on the news, you try to ignore everything that's happening with these protests, you try to ignore and pretend like they're not happening and say garbage lines like all lives matter, what you end up doing is not only discounting the experience, the emotions, and potentially the trauma that somebody who's black has experienced, but what you're also doing is saying, I refuse to rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. What you're saying is, I refuse to mourn with my black brothers and sisters who have their own stories on how they were damaged, they were hurt, they were traumatized because of something as, I would say, insignificant in quotes here as being followed in the store, and something as traumatic as having a gun pointed to their head because they tried to reach to grab their car registration in their glove compartment and somebody thought it was a gun or something.
Yeah.
So if you're not diversifying your area, you're living in an echo chamber that is just going to constantly reiterate the same misinformation that you've brought, which would lead you to the disposition of all lives matter, which will then render the fact that you're not actually mourning with those who are mourning.
That's good, man. That's really good.
And I'm out.
Yeah. Well, that was a good one, guys. We're gonna wrap that one up. No, that's good, man. You know, it's like I see people are like, you know, I get it, but you don't understand. Jesus died for all. Yes, I get it, right? But if all lives matter was really a thing, then Black Lives Matter wouldn't have to be a thing.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Judah Smith's been saying it for for weeks at this point, but And I think everyone's got something derivative of the same thing, but it's something to the effect of all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter.
Correct.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You
For sure.
can't confidently say all lives matter if right now Black lives don't matter.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yep.
I've seen like
Always
comedians.
haven't.
Yeah.
Always. It's not just right now. Like that's the biggest thing is people tend to ignore that this has been going on
Oh
for
yeah,
years,
100%.
years, years.
100%. And I think that like there's even like there's a comedian who had a joke that's going around a whole lot right now, and his whole thing is like, listen, we're asking for us to say that Black Lives Matter, and that's controversial.
Mm.
You're asking for the bare minimum, guys.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
the joke is like, do you want something less like that Black lives exist? Is that easier for you to consume?
Wow.
You know what I
Yikes.
mean?
Yeah. Wow.
Because all you're talking about is that it's just like had the same existence, and you're trying to fight that.
Yeah.
Is this
You're
the
not. It's not like you're
conversation?
saying Black lives are better, right?
Mhm.
It's just we're just trying, and that's so that's a shame, right? That we have to again, right? They matter.
Right.
Like, we're fighting for them just to matter.
Right.
Like no, it's more than just mattering.
Right. And this is
You
the
know?
conflict that I have. The conflict that I have is the duality that I'm trying to live in as being a white person and actively trying to speak up in these things.
Yeah.
And fight because like I don't want either of you guys to be looked at as the angry black man because you have an opinion. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because
Yeah.
that's unfair.
Mhm.
You're asking for bare minimum stuff.
Yeah.
And so the duality that I'm fighting with is elevating the voices of people of color that are around me and then simultaneously being like, and I'm also going to speak up because what you're saying is garbage.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you
For sure.
Mhm.
you third person here.
Yeah.
You know
That's
what I
right.
mean?
Yep.
So like I'm gonna elevate the black voices that are around me and also say like, hey, and they're right. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. That's good, man. I think.
I'm literally so lit about this.
No, yeah, dude. Like,
Trust me.
I'll tell you, man. Like my perspective on it, right? Okay, I'm a Caucasian male, whatever, bro. I've got a black kid, man.
Yeah.
My son, man, last week was freaking out, right? And I don't want to open this can of worms, so to speak, but I am acknowledging the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm all in support of it for my son, for my friends, for my brothers, my sisters in Christ. And I'm not taking anything away from that. But I also refuse to ignore the abuse of authority in law enforcement as well.
Sure.
Right. And I'm not trying to open that can of worms. Okay. But you know what? I've never had someone pull a gun on me because I'm white. But I have had someone pull a gun on me because they can, because I ride a motorcycle.
Sure.
I've had that happen. I have been a victim of police brutality. I've been thrown on the ground and handcuffed because I had a colors on. You know what I mean? I that has happened to me.
Right.
And to me, my biggest fear is just like this, that you said perfectly, that this isn't a new thing.
Yeah.
Right. This has been going for hundreds of years. My biggest fear is that abuse of power and police brutality is going to go on for another 100 years.
Sure.
Right. And that for me, it's like if I can be honest and transparent, I'm trying to find that like I want to fight, you know what I mean, for the Black Lives Matter movement and for my brothers and sisters, my son, everything else. But at the same time, I also want to fight this one too.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But I've noticed that by me doing that, it's like I'm watering down the Black Lives Matter movement, which I don't want to do. You know, so how do I voice and not stay silent on both of these things parallel? And I've had some people say like, look, man, let's get this figured out first and then we'll go back to that.
Mhm.
Right. And I get that. But that's also what happened with slaves too, right? Well, let's just figure out this stuff and we'll come back to the slaves later. And now 2020, we are where we are.
I think what you really have to think about is actively dismantling the system because we have to think about and that goes alongside
Yep.
the Black Lives Matter movement, which is, we have to understand why we're in those social bubbles that you're talking about. Why did we get there in the first place? It's the system. the way that America was built was not like any person of color had any voice anywhere. And you have to think about how we're separated too in different cities as well with redlining, how people were pushed, not able to buy property, how they were just pushed out. They're not even allowed in those inner circles that have been built, by white people, because that's what it was for generations.
Yeah.
And it's really about dismantling the system, speaking up and breaking those generational curses, because really it's things that it's hard to admit. It's those harsh conversations that us as white people, we need to have in our families. Things that, like, this is a generational curse. It's a misconception. They don't get it. Like, they
Yeah.
just don't get it. And it's hard because, Black Lives Matter is dismantling the system, which is fighting against police brutality, which is fighting against the things that have been hidden, things that people are hiding. The government is hiding from us, that we just, unless you do some serious digging, you're not able to find out how in institutions people are, people of color don't even know their history because they want to cover it up. So it's hard because you have to fight both. You have to. It's not even a balance. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
And like I said, like you said before, having those hard conversations, one, it's amplifying the Black voice. And then two, it's being in those rooms where there aren't any Black people, facing your family members, facing your friends in that bubble and saying, this is wrong. Let me show you why. Let me show you how the system was, how we put people of color in oppression, how they were oppressed, how, how we were built, and
Yeah.
why we have the privilege that we do now. And it's definitely, I think it's both.
Yeah.
And I definitely think you can do both too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's not a finding a balance thing, right? It's finding a voice. I did something yesterday that was really hard for me, it's funny. I did a Facebook Live video on my personal page. One, because my friends, my family know my thoughts on law enforcement, right? How I teach my children is there are good pastors and bad pastors, good doctors and bad doctors, good cops and bad cops. That's how I raise my children, right? Um, but at the same time, they haven't experienced police brutality. I have, and I've chosen to deal with my experiences and not say, well, you know what they did to your dad. I don't do that. I don't, because they don't need to have that perspective because it affected me. So I did something yesterday. I went live on Facebook. One, to show my friends and family, but two, because if anything did happen, it was on tape. But I went to go get dinner at Acme, and I just felt so. I was listening to "Clutches" by Sleeping Giant, which is powerful, and it says the only freedom we have is radical love. And I'm sitting there listening to it, and I can just feel the Holy Spirit just like stirring me and just churning me. And I look up, and there's two patrol officers in their cars, one black, one white, just sitting there. And I literally, like, the Holy Spirit's like, go pray for him. And I literally was like, nope, not today. Like, nope, not gonna do it. And I don't like that. If you guys like, that's not me. Like, I'm not like want to be like, no. I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go. That time, I was like, nope, not doing it. Not today, Jesus, not today. And I just felt so impressed in my heart that I had to do it. It was, bro. I mean, I'm like, my hands are shaking. I was crazy nervous, and I went up and I prayed for him. I said, hey, man. He gets out of the car. He's like, yo, can I help you, sir? Because again, we're in New Jersey and we still have to social distance and all that kind of stuff with COVID-19. So, but I said, hey man, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, yo, my name is this, and this is where I'm at, and this is this, and this, and this. And I told him, I said, I have been a victim of police brutality, but I am publicly making this public declaration to you that I refuse to treat you based off something that happened somewhere else with another police officer. I can't do that. And I said, you know what, man? I want to pray for you guys. I want to speak life into you. Can I do that? And then they paused and said, I'm just gonna let you know right now, even if you say no, I'm doing it. Like, I'm gonna pray for you anyway. And they're like, no, man, like, please. And I just prayed for him and spoke life into him and whatever. And I remember like walking away from that and just feeling like heavy. Like why did I have to do that? You know what I mean? Why is it like, oh well, you gotta, make this stand? Why was that a stand? Right? You know what I mean? Why was that? I remember being a young boy, right? You see a veteran, You know, you go up and shake his hand and say, hey, man, thank you for your service. You see a police officer? Hey, thank you for keeping my family safe. Why in the world am I a big tattooed guy walking up to a guy that is half my size, scared to death because I think he's going to freaking blow my brains out? And all I want to do is tell him thank you. All I want to do is pray for you and speak life into you, but I'm scared out of my mind. Right. And I think, again, right, not just voicing a problem, but a solution. Right. I could sit here and say, well, you know, this and that, and I was scared. But you know what? And I ended the video really abrupt and I said, you know what? I prayed for them. That was way too hard, but I prayed for them. I prayed for their safety. And that's the stand I choose to make. And I ended the video, right? Because that's the stand I'm choosing to make, right?
Mhm.
You know what? I have not experienced racial bias, right? Or whatever you want to call it, right? But I know family that has, right? If I can keep it 100, right? I have an aunt, had an aunt. She's in home with Jesus, but her name was Aunt Pam. She is black, like black, right? She's my Aunt Pam, dark black, right? And dark. And my cousin Andre, bro. I love him like a brother. We grew up together, right? That's my dude, right? And the only racism I experienced was from her black family because we took her in and they didn't. And they hated us for it. Right? Like, no, you don't need those white people to take care of you. Like, what? It's not about white. Like, why do we do that? Like, why is it, well, I got a flat tire and a black man came and helped me? No, you got a flat tire and a good person came and helped you fix your tire, right? Like, who cares about the color of your skin and all that, right? And I'm like almost venting right now, and I need to stop that, right? But, you know, I think we have to speak out, right? We have to, man. We have to understand that if we are men and women of God, right, we have influence, you have a voice, and it's okay to do that, to use your voice and to say, hey, look, this is what I choose to do. Just like we talked about, like with the like not wearing a tie and all these things, like you made a choice that, hey, I'm going to do that because that's who I needed, right? And all that. So in this Black Lives Matter movement, as men and women of God, that's exactly the same thing we need to do now, right?
Shout out to Josh for your you in Bethlehem, PA.
Yeah.
And you getting up there.
Yes.
And your story and everything. So,
Absolutely, man.
go, man.
Sheesh, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
A lot of thoughts going through my head. But thank
Yeah,
you.
man. You know, this is uncomfortable, right? I mean, this is but again, these are conversations that need to happen, right? You know,
Josh, I will fight somebody for you.
Oh, bro.
I love you.
bro, don't get
I
it twisted,
love
homie.
you.
Yo, I'm gonna tell y'all right now.
Cookout, all right?
Look, I got a shirt that says it. Look, church enough to pray for you, hood enough to swing on you.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted,
Yes.
homie. I got my family's. Look, we have a thing, right? I don't have your 6. I got your clock. I got you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I just got you back. I got everything. Know that.
No, but for real,
Like my
just,
gangsters, like-
somebody says someone, just be like at Ruben Alexander.
Yeah.
Let me tell you
Yeah.
something real quick.
Let me get him real quick. Let me get him in. Tag, I'm it. Let's go. Bing, round 2. No, oh man, guys, this is cool, man. You know, one thing I would encourage everyone, not necessarily my guests here, but everyone that's listening to this, man, I would encourage you, right, to pray. I did a video not too long ago, and I said, when's the last time you prayed, fasted, and spoke life into your enemies? When's the last time you prayed, rejoicing and blessing over the people that have persecuted you? You know, that's a stand I choose to make.
Sure.
I acknowledge that it's bad, but what I'm going to do about it is I'm going to pray. And I'm going to pray loud and out loud and in public, right? So if you're watching this or you're listening to this, whatever, right? Talk is cheap, but prayer changes the world, right? And, you know, we have to pray, but you also got to speak too, right? I'm not saying not to talk. I'm not saying that, right? Please don't twist my words. I'm not saying that, you know? But, you know, just pray, man, you know, that we would get back to one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all, period. No comma, no hyphen, period, right? So, guys, thank you so much. There's so much more in here that we didn't even like unpack and even get into. But this is good, man. I really appreciate you, Pastor Ruben, for being here, and everybody else, man. I really, really appreciate you guys being here. I love you guys. I really do. Whether you like it or not. So, yeah. But yeah, anybody else got anything else before we wrap this up? Anybody? Anything?
Hmm? I'm sorry. No.
Revolution.
I'm so
What's
lost right now.
I
What's
said
happening?
Black Lives Matter revolution.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Let the two men
You know, I
speak
will say
about it.
this. I will say this, man. I'm gonna make a. I don't have much influence. There's not like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube or anything. But I will say this. Do you have the? Can you pull up the? I don't want to say the mission statement, but the statement of the church of what they are basically acknowledging in this.
Yeah.
And I just want to publicly basically say, hey, man, for me and my family, we're about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It might take me a while to try to find it. And paraphrased,
Yeah.
we're really we're taking the stand that we are against the evils of racism and injustice.
Absolutely.
Just this in the simplest form. That's really what it comes
Yeah.
down to.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm not just I'm not about not racism. I'm anti-racism.
Yeah.
Straight up, I'm anti-racism. So, guys, thank you so much for being here, man. This is good. This is really good. I think we might have to do uncomfortable part two, and just kind of dive in some more. I think there's some things to be unpacked as far as like radical Christianity and some other layers, man. I want to talk about flat earthers and people that will bend the scripture to conform to their beliefs and things like that, right? We didn't even talk about the Holy Spirit. We didn't even get there. I want to talk about the
He
Holy
was
Spirit.
here though. So
Yeah, he
it's
was.
okay.
Absolutely. So guys, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate you guys. And for everybody watching, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you get notified every time we do a video. Every other Wednesday, we have the Loud Pipes Bless Lives podcast. Every Monday on the Facebook page, we have a live Ask Me Anything where you can ask me anything you want and I will answer it honestly and truthfully to the best of my ability. And every Friday, we do a post on YouTube where we do a Just My Heart. It's about a 5 to 10 minute video of just me being open, honest, and transparent to the world on what God is doing in my life in that very moment. So if that blesses you, if this blesses you, make sure to, again, share it and all that kind of good stuff. And I love every single one of you. There's not a darn thing you can do about it. Peace.